I think that there's ways that Alberta can achieve autonomy without going the route of full separatism. And that's something I think obviously we're debating. And
every voice has a moral authority in our democracy, and it's the day where it's a great leveling. A billionaire and a peasant each have one vote, and that's what's so exciting about the looming referendums and citizen initiatives in Alberta. But I think there's some voices that have risen to the top in terms of the quality of their thinking, being philosophical, being well-informed, and I'm looking for voices like that in the debate over Alberta's future. And definitely one of those people is Keith Wilson, the senior lawyer who actually was the lawyer for the Freedom Convoy of truckers in Ottawa. He's now become sort of the go-to legal mind on the pro-independence side of the debate. I'm delighted to say that we put Keith Wilson and today's special guest together for an amazing debate a few months ago in Alberta. Our guest today is someone I met when I was a student at University of Calgary. He was at University of Lethbridge, and we met each other in a battle against a communist students' union, which was a really great way to meet. And he went on to high heights in international business and investment, coming back to Alberta after Jason Kenney defeated Rachel Notley's NDP. And he had the heavy duty of telling the world that no, Alberta hadn't gone mad, or at least it was returning to sanity, and that the world's investors should return also. Without further ado, let me introduce to you someone whose thoughts I really listen carefully to, because there's so many deep thoughts there in our world of shallow sound bites. It's a pleasure to spend some time with David Legg. David, great to see you again.
hey, great to see you, Ezra.
Now, you're in London today. You're always flying around, and that's one of the things you did for Canada, for Alberta, is you would fly to these investment capitals of London and Germany and New York, and you would say, guys, Alberta's back. Give us a minute on that, because I think that that's an untold story of what you did. Not very flashy. It was behind the scenes, trying to tell the world not to give up on Alberta.
Yeah, you have to be behind the scenes if you want to get things done sometimes, which is not typical in politics, as you know. I think sometimes political perspective benefits from being, dramatic, public, and framed. But what we were trying to do at the time was ensure that the world knew that in spite of these ESG rules that were coming through the large insurance firms and banks.
There's one seat left in the movie theater. It's in the front row. You have a bad neck. This is what we call a last resort. If your most recent electricity bill says the rate of last resort, then your rate is like the front row seat in the movie theater. It will serve its purpose, but there are likely better options available.
That Alberta not only was the best, most ethical source of energy in the world, but it was incredibly smart investment for people to be making for long term for a lot of reasons. But we had to battle two things, Ezra. One, we had to battle, a green fringe politics that had somehow taken hold largely through Davos and had kind of become part of the Liberal Party and NDP consensus that fossil fuels were bad. And we also had to deal with the fact that we were replacing an NDP government that had let Alberta's brand slip, and it actually worked against Alberta's standing in global financial markets. And so one of the things, I had some good friends from HSBC, which had redlined Alberta oil sands, and we restructured that relationship through a negotiation process through CEO Noel Quinn at the time and the CFO Ewan Stevenson. And we did the same thing with Barclays. And so we started to unlock better value capital for Alberta industry by taking the actual Alberta story, not the caricature that had been created by the left and that the Liberal and NDP parties that adopted about Alberta. And this is one of the things that I think is at stake in the conversation right now. Alberta, creates the most wealth in the country. It leads the nation by a long shot on job creation. Alberta, by instinct, is a conservative province. It has cut taxes, reduced regulation, and as a result, it has grown jobs 3.8% in the last year. The rest of the country is 0.6%. And what's funny is you see a Liberal Party that has antagonistic policies to all of that growth, citing that growth as a sign that Canada is healthy right now. And what I want to keep pointing out is, policies have ideas have consequences, and so do policies. And we created a policy environment that I think Premier Danielle Smith has picked up on and taken to the next level in terms of making Alberta a great place for global investment attraction. Something we started with the Invest Alberta structure, something we, I worked very hard on the blueprint for the Indigenous Opportunities Corporation to take Indigenous equity participation in major projects out of the category of sort of corrupt chiefs and corrupt middlemen into a category where money could be lent to take stakes in projects that would benefit all Albertans and share the wealth with communities that tend to be poor but are land rich. And so, we got a lot done during that time. I think Premier Smith is building on that. And I think right now, a lot of the themes of that economic autonomy and independence and the ability to move past the disruptive and often antagonistic style of politics that's happened in Canada's federation because the East is resentful of Alberta's momentum is now starting to play out. I think, as you know, I have a different view than Keith, who I have an enormous amount of respect for what he's done to defend the civil rights and the representation of the truckers. And I shared that with him. But I think that there's ways that Alberta can achieve autonomy without going the route of full separatism. And that's something I think obviously we're debating. And actually, I'm in London right now, and a good friend of mine who was part of the Brexit conversation at the time and is currently quite prominent in the conservative movement here and is going through the same thing we went through back in the day of, will it be conservative or will it be reform conservative and then conservative again with that reform DNA? And I think the latter is what's going to happen. But there's a lot happening, not just in Alberta, but around the world as people look at what are the policies that actually lead to prosperity for everybody and the most broadly shared prosperity. And I think that, what we're seeing in the UK right now with reform and conservative post-Brexit and what you're seeing in Alberta right now is reflecting a much broader international movement that's happening all over the world towards a more conservative framework because it just leads to more, individual freedom and prosperity.